Well, this is going to be one long video. Rick and Morty is an adult animated sci-fi sitcom created by Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon for Cartoon Network's nighttime programming block Adult Swim. Blah 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 blah. Whatever. Look, I'm not going to indulge in the history of Rick and Morty. You already know the story, but for those who do, just look it up online, I guess. If you've read the title, I'm going to be ranking every Rick and Morty episode ever. All 61 of them, not counting the new 7th season. Now you might be asking yourself, well, why am I doing this when I haven't made a single Rick and Morty video on my channel? Well, I actually have seen Rick and Morty before, like when I was 9, but it hasn't made such a significant impact on my channel unlike regular show, because that's the only other thing I upload. But when I heard that season 5 was coming out, I decided to go, you know what, I'm going to rewatch this show and see what happened, what did I miss out on? And then I rewatched it again, and now finally, I've completed the tier list. I'm going to rank every Rick and Morty episode ever, from worst to best. So in order to rank these episodes, I came up with a tier list with a few sections. D tier will comprise of really, really bad episodes. C tier will consist of okay, but sort of forgettable episodes. B tier will comprise of solid and pretty good episodes. A tier will comprise of great episodes. And S tier will comprise of just perfect episodes. Starting at number 61, we have Rick Dependent Spray. Now this episode is just truly god-awful. There is no other episode like this. The whole episode just consists of how Morty uses a horse breeding mount to extract his semen, which Rick uses to create a weapon, but accidentally creates sperm monsters in the process. The whole episode from start to finish is just beyond cringeworthy. It's just so bad. Don't watch it. For number 60 on this list, we have Erasing Gazorp. Now I'm just going to say this quickly. This episode is really bad, but in my opinion, it's not as bad as Rick Dependent Spray. It's slightly better. The whole sex robot plot and the whole thing with Morty raising... Wait, what's his name again? Oh yeah, Morty Jr. It's just a travesty of storytelling, and the whole Summer and Rick plot wasn't all that good either. This episode is just uncomfortable, and nothing about this episode was entertaining either. I would have outright ranked this episode at the bottom of the list, if the sperm episode didn't exist. Coming up at number 59 spot, we have Gotron Jeffress. You know what, I'm not even going to say it. Besides, this episode's really boring. It's just a whole fucking parody of Voltron. I don't care. Plus, it was an excuse to bring back the freaking... I don't want to say it because I don't want to get demonetized. The baby from episode 4. It's better than Rick Dependent Spray though. Okay, coming in at the number 59 spot, we have season 4, episode 3, Claw and Hoarder, Special Victims Morty, whatever. Claw and Hoarder is just like... I don't really care about it. I did like the whole talking cat thing, but the whole Rick and Slut Dragon thing, I didn't give a shit about it. It was, like, so fucking bad, and it felt like an entirely different show, the whole plot. I don't recommend it. I don't give a shit about it, and I don't want you to watch it. Please don't. A Rick and King Mortuous Morse. Look, all I have to say about this episode is that it's just boring. There is nothing else I want to say about this episode. Why? Because there is nothing interesting about this episode. It's just boring. Okay, coming in at the number 56 spot, we have season 5, episode 5. Wait, what was the episode called again? Oh wait, it's a Morty Can't Graffiti, folks. Sorry for forgetting, I guess. This episode sucks. It isn't funny, it's just weird. The characters look weird, everything is weird. There is nothing else I can say about this episode other than the fact that it's weird. But I'd rather watch this episode than one where Morty sacrifices his dick. Okay, the next episode on this list is the ABC's Beth. this episode, in my opinion, is just the worst episode from season 3. I didn't really care about the whole thing with Jerry and his new girlfriend. I didn't really care about it. Also, the whole thing with Beth being a clone was like, it exists, and I don't really care about it. It's bad, but it's not the worst episode in the series. Aside from that, I'll give this episode a 3 out of 10 for wasting my time. Okay, our next episode is Season 2, Episode 8, Interdimensional Cable 2, Tempting Fate. Now, this episode is just a failed attempt at rehashing a perfectly good Season 1 episode. Nothing is funny. Well, there are some parts that are funny, but, most of the episode isn't, that funny as Rick's New Minutes. The commercials aren't that funny, and, it's not bad or anything, but it's also not good. I could have given this episode a C tier, but I kind of changed my mind at the last minute, probably because of a really shitty side plot with Jerry and his state-of-the-art whatever. I don't really care. Just don't watch this episode, please. Okay, what's our next episode? Oh, it's Vindicators. Vindicators, pardon my French, fucking sucks ass. There is nothing good about this episode. Nothing. Okay, I might be exaggerating back there. I didn't enjoy the ending. No, I'm not talking about the logic part with him and his rap song. That was cringe. I'm talking about the noob part. That is the only good thing in this episode. Nothing else is funny. Why? Because there isn't anything else funny in this episode. It's just a boring Saw parody and a Guardians parody mixed in one to make one of the worst Rick and Morty episodes ever. I do actually recommend you watch this episode, but just remember, watch it at your own risk. Okay, our next episode to finish off the D tier is Season 6, Episode 7, Full Meta Jackfruit. Please, God help me.
Is this whole place just a bunch of groan-inducing wordplay for 7 TV critics that won't even enjoy it?
Yeah, this episode is so up its own ass. It's not fucking funny. It's very, very shit. It's a sequel to the whole Season 4 episode, you know, the train one, which everyone fucking praised. Well, yes, as I said earlier, this is a sequel, and it is much worse than the train episode. This episode's constant barrage of meta jokes just doesn't even fucking work. It's just, I feel like this episode is an excuse to air all the writers' insecurities, but in a really, really bad way.
Using Jesus to beat us up? Have you seen South Park? Good call out, Morty. That's the kind of meta I like.
Overall, this episode sucked. Don't watch it. It's pretty boring. Okay, starting at the bottom of C tier, we have the Season 3 finale, the Rick and Morty Day. Now look, this episode is pretty bad, okay, but it's not as bad as ABC's of Beth. I honestly gotta say, in my opinion, this episode is one of the weakest season finales ever. That's all I really have to say. This episode's kind of pretty forgettable on its own. It's also, not really that interesting. Just don't watch it. Okay, at number 50, we have Season 6, Episode 3, Perfect Twin Stick. Okay, this episode isn't remotely that bad, but overall, it's also remotely not good. It's kind of mid. I think both the plots are, alright, but in my opinion, the episode could have done way more better character development with Beth and Space Beth, other than that of a lesbian romance, but overall, it's, not a bad episode. Okay, our next episode, coming up the number 49 spot, is Season 4, Episode 3, One Crew Over the Crew Who's Morty. The heist episode. The heist plot, in my opinion, is pretty cool, but overall, the episode just doesn't really hit hard compared to other Rick and Morty adventures. Okay, in the C tier, we have Season 4, Episode 9. Wait, hold on, what was the episode called again? Oh yeah, Child Rick of Mort. This episode, in my opinion, is so fucking bad. There is nothing I can describe it with. But it's not on a D tier level, it's more on a C tier level as a more forgettable episode. I honestly gotta say, in my opinion, this episode feels more like a shit post on Discord than an actual good episode. Please, do not watch it. Okay, our next episode is Season 4, Episode 2, The Old Man and the Seat. In my opinion, The Old Man and the Seat is boring. I never really had any sympathy for this dull episode. Jerry's plot with the app was, like, okay, and the Rick's toilet plot wasn't really, like, that interesting. It was sort of there. Didn't really care about it. Look, I know Jerry has always been over his head most of the time, but here it's not really that interesting or groundbreaking, and it doesn't really leave a mark compared to other episodes like this with Pluto's and the Planet one. Overall, this episode was like sort of shit, but not really. Okay, the next episode on this list, which is the Season 6 episode, is Rick and Morty. Look, this episode's pretty boring and forgettable. There's nothing really interesting about this episode. It's just the dinosaurs coming back to Earth. It's nothing really that interesting. Our next episode, coming in at number 46, is Season 4, Episode 6, Never Rick and Morty. Look, this episode's okay. It was kind of a bit confusing at times as well. I mean, like, it's pretty funny at times, but it's not really, like, a great episode. I know a lot of people were very divided on this one. I think it's pretty creative, and I do think the Beth and Jerry part was a pretty funny gag as well. I do believe it's a better meta episode than Full Meta Jack Rick, of course, but it isn't really the best episode in the series. It's okay, but sort of forgettable. Coming in at the number 44 spot is Rectional Mort Poons Rickmas Mortcation. Never mind. This episode's okay. I mean, like, it's not a great season finale, and it's not bad. It just sort of exists. Like, both plots are okay, but the only nitpick I have with this episode is that Rick hasn't really made any progress in regards to finding Rick Prime. It's kind of a bit of a disappointing finale, but it's not a bad episode. It's sort of, mid in a way. Okay, our next episode on this list is Rick and Morty's Fangsploitation Spectacular. Now look, overall, this episode is okay. I did find the episode's approach with Rick and the President to be pretty okay, but the turkey plot is just weird and just unsatisfying. The next episode at number is Risky Business, which is yet another weak season finale, but it is better than the season 3 finale though. I didn't really care about this one. The Titanic plot was boring, but the only thing I did find funny about it was the part where Jerry was being held at gunpoint by that lady. Yeah, nothing else was really special. The side plot with Summer and Rick's party wasn't really that cool anyway. I didn't care about it, but I did like the ending with the meaning of a wubba lubba dub dub part.
What wubba lubba dub dub means?
That's just Rick's stupid nonsense catchphrase.
It's not nonsense at all. In my people's tongue, it means, I am in great pain. Please help me.
Okay, our next episode on this list is Season 1, Episode 3, Anatomy Park. Now look, this episode is pretty forgettable if you look back and rewatch the show, but it's still pretty solid. Both the plots are pretty decent. The Anatomy Park one was probably a bit better in my opinion. Overall, this episode is pretty forgettable, but I do think it is a better Christmas episode than Season 6's finale. A Wrinkle in Time is a solid premiere, and I do like how it's structured. I do enjoy the whole plot with Rick and the whole time continuum thing, and I also thought it was pretty funny and sort of cool, but the plot with Beth and Medea wasn't really that interesting. It was okay. I never really liked Beth as a character, as to why I ranked this episode pretty low, but I do like the whole part where she saves a deer. Okay, our next episode on this list is Get Swifty. Yeah, it was okay, I guess. I mean, like, both plots are pretty solid on their own, but they're not really that groundbreaking. I also kind of did enjoy the musical numbers, such as Get Swifty and... Wait, what was the other one? I don't really care. Overall, this episode isn't really that memorable, and I never really had any sympathy towards the episode. except for like the ending where Ice-T sacrificed himself.
It's me, Ice-T. I care now.
Okay, our next episode on this list is a season 5 episode actually, Mortyplicity. Look, I gotta honestly say, this episode is... I'm very mixed with it, okay? The fighting is pretty good, and the execution is also very good, but the main nitpick I have is that the episode is very repetitive, and it can get tedious at times. I don't recommend that you watch this episode, but if you want to rewatch it again, just remember to switch your brain off. Okay, to finish off the C tier, at number 36 is the pilot. This episode overall is actually not that bad, and it's pretty good as an episode. The Megatree Seeds plot was pretty funny, and I also thought the side plot with Beth and Jerry was okay, I guess. Overall, this episode's pretty good, but it's also forgettable, and the episode isn't really strong compared to most of the others. Coming at the bottom of the B tier list is Season 2, Episode 9, Look Who's Purging Now. Now, look, this episode is okay. I don't hate this episode, and you're probably expecting me to say something like, The Purge was fucked, or something like that. As I said earlier, I don't hate this episode. I find the fighting scenes to be pretty good, but I never really enjoyed the ending with Rick and Frisha. That's probably my only nitpick with this episode, but aside from that, it's pretty solid. Coming in up at number 34 spot is the episode Season 3, Episode 5, The Whirly Durly Conspiracy. Now look, this episode is pretty good. The A-plot at least. I found the Rick and Jerry episode to be pretty cool, and in my opinion, I think it's the strongest Rick and Jerry adventure in the show, for now. The B-plot, however, just sucks. It's not funny, and it ruins the whole vibe for this episode. Not only that, it also ruins Summer's character development from Season 3, Episode 2. Overall, this episode is pretty solid if you completely disregard the B-plot with Summer and her, you know. Okay, our next episode is A Rick Convenient Mort. Okay, for this episode, I'm going to keep my opinion short for this one. I actually enjoyed this episode, and I feel like it's one of the most emotional episodes in the series for me. One of the most emotional. I did enjoy the A-plot with Morty and Planetina, and I think it's great, and it kind of makes up for the whole shitty side plot with Rick and Summer.
Not if I keep Rick's mouth full of these.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah, that's right, girlfriend.
Okay, our next episode is Season 6, Episode 2, Rick, a Mort Whirlwind. I gotta honestly say, this episode is pretty good, but not really the best episode. The whole Roy plot is pretty good, and I do agree that it's not really that poggers, but still solid. The Die Hard plot is okay, I guess, but it kind of gets repetitive at times. Yeah, also, Die Hard is said exactly 42 times. The episode Rick Mancing the Stone is a very wild episode. I find everything in here to be cool, especially with the Mad Max references in here. It's a pretty cool tribute. What I do like is the character development in here with Summer being a total badass. I didn't have any nitpicks with this episode. I feel like it's just generally solid. It's not really a great episode. Final Desmithation is an okay episode. I mean, like, it is a better episode that makes fun of something that would be too inappropriate to say on here. Otherwise, I'd, like, get cancelled or demonetized. I do like the whole creativity with the fortune cookies in here, though. I feel like it's pretty cool. I didn't really enjoy this episode that much, but I thought it was pretty fun and solid. Okay, our next episode is Protimus. Yeah, it was okay, I guess. I thought it was pretty solid. There wasn't really anything else interesting. I thought the whole sucking parasites thing was pretty cool. There's nothing really special about it, other than the fact it's solid. It's just okay, I guess. Rattlestar Galactica is an okay episode. I'm meaning like it's solid in its own way. I'm meaning like it's solid in its own way, and I do think it's a better Christmas episode compared to the other two episodes from Season 1 and Season 6. Both plots are pretty solid, and I do think that this is a better Season 4 episode. The fighting the snake plot is, like, okay. It's pretty cool. And I didn't mind the Jerry plot. At number 28 is the episode Lawnmower Dog. which, in my opinion, is a very solid episode that deals with an Inception parody really well. It's executed very well, and yeah, that's all I have to say. I don't really have to say anything else. There's nothing really else interesting about this episode aside from a whole Inception parody. The whole Snuffles plot was okay, I guess. It was probably one of the only nitpicks I had with this episode, considering the fact that I didn't really care about it. Also in this episode, Rick says something sus here.
Allah Akbar! We're gonna take control of this plane! We're gonna 9/11 it unless Morty Smith gets better grades in math!
37 spot, we have the Season 4 premiere, Edge of Tomorty, Rick Die repeat. As a whole, this episode seems to be pretty cool. I did enjoy the whole side plot with Rick ending up in these whole Nazi Germany worlds after he dies. I also kind of enjoyed the whole crystal plot with Morty. Overall, it's a pretty solid episode.
What the hell?
Is a solid two-parter, with the second parter being okay. I'll talk about that a little later. I do like the whole plot with Morty meeting this dude from a mental hospital through speaking through a portal, with him eventually starting to bond with him to eventually going to kill him right near a train. The whole plot with Rick and Two Crows was okay, I guess. I never really had any sympathy for this plot, and I could taste the mediocrity towards the end of this episode. But overall, I still think it's like pretty solid, aside from the ending. Rest and Relaxation is a pretty good episode. I do like most of the stuff about it, but the only thing I don't really like is the execution with the ending of the episode. The simulation inside a simulation inside a simulation episode is a personal favorite of mine from Season 1, and I really like the wacky spark in here. The Hungry for Apples plot is probably pretty good as well. It actually is pretty good. And the whole thing with the Zygerians trying to get the recipe for concentrated dark matter was a cool episode as well, and it was kind of pretty cool for me. And it kind of kept me. And it kept me hooked until the end of the episode. Very solid and very smart. And the whole thing with the Zygerians trying to get the recipe for concentrated dark matter was a cool episode as well. And it kept me hooked until the end of the episode. Very solid and very smart. Morty Night Run is a pretty solid episode in my opinion. Overall, it's probably one of the most highly rewatchable episodes for me. I found Morty's character development to be great, and I found the Jerry daycare plot to be also good as well, and not boring like most other Jerry plots. I even found the Moonmen song to be good. Great episode. Okay, to finish off the B tier, we have the Season 5 finale, Rick Samurai Jack. Okay, just hear me out on this one. This episode is good, but it's not the best episode in the series. It is like a solid episode overall, and it is a pretty strong finale in my opinion. But in my opinion, I feel like it's overshadowed by a few things as to why I'd rank it in B tier instead of S tier. Okay, so here are the reasons as to why this episode isn't really that great. The first reason is Rick's backstory. Now look, of course, we learned in Season 3 that Rick's backstory was used so that the federal government could use it to obtain information on a portal gun formula. And then the backstory, we learn about Rick Prime, who basically killed Rick's own wife and daughter, and now Rick has to relive this tragic backstory. But it turns out, all of this is entirely fake. It turns out that the entire backstory was actually a virus, so that Rick could get full control of the machine that is currently melting his brain so that he could escape. It was a very clever dig at tragic backstories. But with Season 5, we learned that the entire backstory is actually real. Wait, what the fuck? Wait, when the fuck did this happen? Like, what? Just why is the backstory real? They could have entirely written an entirely new backstory, but no, they just had to go ahead and rehash a backstory from Season 3. Like, just why? It just completely insults the audience. And now we have to accept the fact that Rick basically went to another reality so that he could see Beth grow up and make sure that she isn't fatherless. It just sucks. It draws away all the emotion you had for the Season 3 backstory. Like, just why? Another thing I don't like about this episode is how Rick acts like a fucking arsehole in here. He doesn't really care. I was fine with him up until he went, oh, we're going to the Citadel now. Like, he acts like he doesn't really care, and that's what draws all the positive attention away. Also, the jokes and the meta jokes in here just suck.
Not busy. Okay, Morty, remember when I said all I need was your apology and a screwdriver in my hand? Well, I forgot I literally have a screwdriver in my hand. I mean, Dadoy, I'm basically Inspector Gadget.
Aside from that, it's a pretty strong finale, and a pretty solid episode. In A tier, there aren't many episodes on this list, primarily because Rick and Morty, in my opinion, has very few episodes that are great, but not really the best. So to begin at the bottom of the tier list, at number 21, we have the Season 5 episode, Mort Dinner Rick Andre. This episode as a whole doesn't actually suck. It's a pretty interesting start to the season 5. The episode's okay, but it's not really that great. I do think this episode is actually pretty funny here and there. I did like the whole plot with Morty trying to get the wine for Jessica. That's pretty much it. I didn't really care about the whole plot with Beth and Jerry, and I never really cared about the Nimbus Treaty thing. Overall, it's still a great episode. Coming in at the number 20 spot, we have Night Family, which is, in my opinion, one of the best episodes from Season 6. I'm surprised that this episode actually takes itself seriously compared to some of the other episodes. I actually liked how the characters acted here and there. It really gave out that horror movie vibe, and I also liked how crazy the plot was. I definitely recommend this episode. By a long shot. Coming in at the number 19 spot is the Season 2 episode, Big Trouble in Little Sanchez, which is a good episode, in my opinion. I do like the plot with Rick turning himself into a teenager, and I do think it's a pretty cool plot overall. The whole side plot with Beth and Jerry going to marriage counseling is okay, I guess. I'm just not really a big fan of it. It's still overall, it's still a good episode. Okay, at the number 18 spot, we have the Season 3 episode, Morty's Mind Blowers. I honestly gotta say, as an episode, I found this to be pretty cool. I do think the memories are pretty cool, and I do think this episode as a whole is really crazy in my opinion. I think the memories are pretty cool. I honestly gotta say, I highly recommend this episode. Coming in at number 17 is Autoerotic Assimilation, which is an interesting choice, but I honestly gotta say it's a really good episode, and I do like how it dives into Rick's character. The episode conveys and executes how Rick wants to be part of a group of friends, but it often results in him having a bad influence on them due to him constantly wanting to have a good time, and as a result, this results in people getting tired of him and leaving him since they don't want to be around him, which explains why Rick hates having friendships and relationships with others and always just shut. Another reason why I rank it high is probably because it has one of my favorite scenes in there. Rick trying to kill himself. I'm not saying that I like the scene where Rick tries to kill himself, but I feel like it's one of the most powerful scenes in the whole show, as well as being one of the more thought-provoking ones. To finish off the short A tier, at number 16, we have none other than the Season 1 episode, Something Wicked This Way Comes. I honestly gotta say, both plots are great. I really like the whole plot with Jerry thinking that Pluto is a planet. It's not a planet. The side plot with Summer working with the devil and Rick trying to, destroy his business is, okay as well. I also gotta say, it's a good episode. Highly recommend. Finally, the S tier. We can finally get up to the great episodes. Okay. Starting off at the bottom of S tier is none other than the Season 3 episode Pickle.
I'm Pickle Rick!
Just hear me out as to why I'd put Pickle Rick in at the bottom of S tier. Look, it's a good episode, but it's not the best. I feel like it's overrated. I do enjoy the whole episode. I think it's pretty funny, and I do like the whole catchphrase of Pickle Rick. A lot of the fighting is pretty cool, and I also really enjoyed the ending with Rick destroying the whole building. I honestly gotta say, Pickle Rick, such a great episode, such a timeless masterpiece. It's super funny. I highly recommend it even more than the one with Jerry thinking that Pluto is a planet. Coming in at number 14, Season 6 premiere, Solar Ricks. Overall, I really like this episode, especially with the ending where Jerry meets Rick Prime, and then Rick Prime kills him.
Dude, badass!
No! God! Why are you here?
Buddy,
No,
I have been
God,
asking
please,
myself
no,
that
no,
exact same
no.
question.
I found this whole episode to be pretty interesting in regards to setting up the whole Rick Prime lore, and I also found it to be pretty cool and creative. The side plot with Beth and Space Beth is okay. I didn't really care about it. I was just more interested in the Rick Prime plot. Overall, I gotta say, it's a great start. It's a great premiere, and it's one of the best episodes of the series. Okay, coming in at number 13 is the Season 6 episode, Analyze Piss. And yes, I do think this episode is slightly better than Night Family. Yeah, I said it. Analyze Piss, in my opinion, is a very cool episode with a crazy premise, and I do like how Rick rolls with it. And I also do like seeing a nice side of Rick for a change, instead of a regular old drunk, angry, aggressive, profane person that we already know as. I do believe the ending could have been a bit better, but overall, I still think this is a good episode, and I do think it's better than Night Family. Coming in at number 12 is the Season 5 episode, Fraternal Friendshine of the Spotless Mort. This is, by a long shot, probably one of the only good episodes from Season 5, and one of the best in the series. I honestly like how well the episode dives into Rick and Birdperson's friendship, and resolves what's going on with Birdperson, even though it's still a bit rushed, and the pacing is pretty fast in my opinion. But it still does a lot of things that I particularly enjoyed, and I'd like to see this further throughout the show. Coming in at number 11, we have Season 2, Episode 6, The Ricks Must Be Crazy. And yes, this episode is pretty crazy. I do enjoy the whole plot with Rick and Morty and the tiny universes. It was very funny. The other side plot with Summer and Rick's car is okay, I guess. It's just a little scary, but it is very good as well. The only nitpick I have with this episode is the ending, but overall, it's still a pretty great episode. Coming in at number 10 is Season 4's finale, Star Mort, Return of Jerry, which, in my opinion, hits hard. The episode is great. The fighting scenes are cool and offer a lot of Star Wars reference. I also kind of liked how they brought back Tammy and Birdperson. If you're a Star Wars fan, I highly recommend this episode. At number 9 is Season 1, Episode 10, Close Encounters of the Rick Kind, which is one of the single best episodes from Season 1, and also yet another timeless classic. Everything in here is just so edge of your seat. The whole evil Morty plot is so good and super funny. I also kind of found the Doofus Jerry plot to be funny as well. The ending is pretty good as well. Highly recommend. Coming up at the number 8 spot is the Meeseeks and Destroy episode. The Meeseeks plot is really good and really funny, primarily because of how the Meeseeks sound. Good job, Justin. Good job. I also kind of liked the whole plot with Morty's adventure. I thought it was alright. The only nitpick I had with this episode was probably the scene where Morty meets Mr. Jellybean. That's probably it. Okay, our next episode at the number 7 spot is Rick Potion number 9, which is yet another timeless classic. I really like how the episode plays out. And one of the many reasons why I like this episode is probably because of the ending, with Morty and Rick burying another version of themselves after finding a different timeline. I like how in this scene Rick is totally fine and completely normal, but Morty is like completely distraught, and I really like how well it's executed. Overall, great episode, great ending. At number 6 is none other than the Season 2 finale, The Wedding Scrunches, which is probably one of the most emotional episodes with a perfect and emotional ending, but it's not life-changing or anything. Nothing is wrong with this episode. Everything is executed perfectly, and I really, really like the ending with Rick turning himself into the Galactic Federation in order to protect his family. It's just such a good scene, and it's also just such a good episode as well. It's a great cliffhanger, and I highly recommend this episode more, I think, than any other episode in the show. Except for a few other good ones. At number 5, we have Season 1, Episode 8, 60 Minutes. This episode, unlike Interdimensional Cable 2, is really good and really funny. The humor lands, everything lands. The humor from the commercials are just really good, and this episode just feels so wholesome. Both plots with the whole interdimensional cable TV and Beth and Jerry are like pretty good, and they are very, very, very fun. So that I enjoy is probably that with Morty explaining to Summer how she was an accident and how he isn't actually her real sister. And it's a very provocative scene, and that is one reason why this episode is timeless. I definitely recommend you watch this episode. It's just super timeless. At number 4, The Ridiculous Mix-Up, which is, in my opinion, one of the single best episodes in Season 3. It hits hard. It's a clever episode which deals with real-world problems, and it's pretty cool to see different versions of Rick and Morty, and the twist at the end with evil Morty is actually pretty smart as well, and pretty cool. Overall, it's a great episode, and everything about it, to this day, in my opinion, still remains timeless. Number 3 is Season 2, Episode 4, Total Recall, which is, in my opinion, the best episode from Season 2, and it is perfectly timeless. It just uses a perfect, simple premise with fake family members and friends trying to, brainwash the whole Smith family, and it just executes it perfectly. There are only, 2 shitty scenes in here that I don't really like, and I wouldn't really mention them since... At number 2 is the Rick Shank Redemption, which, in my opinion, is another perfect season premiere. I do like everything in here. I like how Rick acts like a total god in here, and I like how he's able to dismantle the federal government, and I also do like how well this episode is structured from an action standpoint, and I still think so to this day. Okay, that seems to be every single episode. Oh wait, I forgot one. Now you're probably asking yourself, what's the number 1 episode on this tier list? It isn't Ridiculous Mix-Up, it isn't Rick and Morty Jack, and it certainly isn't Total Recall. It's none other than the Season 4 episode, the Vat of Acid episode. Now please hear me out as to why this episode is great. Please, just hear me out. The Vat of Acid is truly the episode of all time. I don't know why I like it so much. I've always found this to be my favorite episode from a series. I never really liked it when I first watched it, but after rewatching it, I thought to myself, this is a masterpiece. I always thought the concept was really cool, and I think one of my favorite scenes from the show has to come from this episode. You know, the one with the plane crash and Morty resetting his life. This is probably one of the reasons why I like this episode. I really like everything about it. It's just such a crazy and such a funny episode. Okay, I've now finally ranked every single episode of Rick and Morty. I've watched hours of every single episode. It has taken me months to finish this, and now finally I have finished. Now I can finally relax. Oh wait, there's a new Rick and Morty season now. I want to see what they say on Rotten Tomatoes. Oh no.